So we just talked about all the major features. Now we're going to get a little more in depth into how all those features work and get a lot more informative about what's going on. So we talked about how easy the user interface is to use. And really the key thing there is that neutral is detected in the control levers and not in the brake and speed control. By eliminating the brake, usually the brake is up here out of reach, or you may have to use your foot to turn the brake off. You got to have it on to start the engine. We combine both of them. There's a little bit of a two-stage mechanism underneath here. So when you come down to neutral, it engages your brakes. And at the same time, that pushes your control levers up into the neutral range. So as long as this is back, or these are latched in, you can start the engine. But you don't have to have this back to start. As long as your speeds are in neutral, it's safe to start the engine. It's safe to walk away from the machine when the blades are off. So that whole sequence is really easy to work with. Also, compared to some of the other controls in the industry, we've lowered the grips just a little bit. Makes it a little bit easier to get the machine up doing this, but a lot of guys quickly find out with upward facing controls that there's a little bit different technique involved. It's a little more of a hesitation and a pull back than it is a push down with pistol grips. Also, like this whole back end here, it's really important that it doesn't snag on your shirt or your belt buckle. So we've made that really smoothed out the way this transitions. The controls themselves, we know that tension and friction in the controls are bad, and we've done a few things there. So instead of using traditional two-spring mechanism in the RTN, we've gone to a single stage spring with sort of a detent right around neutral. So you can feel definitely when neutral is there, but it doesn't take a lot more to squeeze to go in reverse. Part of that is that we've mounted the control here on a ball bearing, and this linkage runs straight down to the pump arm. There's no secondary mechanisms going on. The speed control is this little cradle here. This is your tracking adjustment. Let me lower the sulky down. So this is your tracking adjustment. Tighter is faster. Back it out, it goes slower. So you can set right, left there. This arm right here is right on the pump trunnion. And so again, being direct, we've reduced that friction. And these springs are pretty soft. And then neutral will look in the front here, behind the engine. You can visualize a little bit what's going on here. See this little cam roller and the switch? So that cam, when it drops in there, this is kind of like a crossbow. When you pull it back, it stays in there real easily, comes out real easily. But you can feel that. You can feel that feedback in the control, but it doesn't make it hard to squeeze. And then the little switch is what tells the electrical system that it's safe to walk away from the machine, because it knows that the pumps are neutral and the machine won't be moving. So that's really what's let us make this a lot easier. Another thing about these control handles is that a lot of times the pivot might be facing this direction or this direction. And what that does is when you squeeze the control, it actually rolls out of your fingers as you squeeze. And so at the end, when you're in reverse, you're trying to squeeze reverse with just your fingertips. Now, by orienting the control this way, this lever actually has a little bit of a sweep to it. So your big fingers are doing more work than your small fingers. And it doesn't rotate in your fingers, so it stays right there. It doesn't, you don't have to re-grip it when it rolls out of your fingertips. So there's a few things there that we believe really made this easier to use. Also, the Confidant engines, they don't take a lot of choke, so once you start up the first time in the morning, this machine's really easy to start, stop, get off, get on. It's super easy on the hands. We have the same front tires as we have on the standard Intensity, which have this shielded setup here. So these bearings are sealed and they don't have to be greased all the time, so that eliminates yet another service point. We have the sealed front housings here. Again, that lets us eliminate all those service points. It comes down on this machine to really just being blades and engine oil. Everything else, we've got sealed ball bearings or sealed rod ends. There's really nothing that you have to worry a lot about every day. So if the machine is neglected, it's not going to really be compromised or fall apart. Eliminating that maintenance point, those maintenance points we've really found is intriguing to a lot of commercial cutters, because they have a real hard time scheduling that routine maintenance. And sometimes it has a little loss in performance, but if it means that that maintenance is not done and the machine destroys itself, that's pretty bad. So they really like this idea that routine maintenance is not as critical. The engine oil obviously has to be done, get the most out of your engine, but for the rest of the machine, we're trying to eliminate as much of that as we possibly can.